Hey, everybody, this is Kenny. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. This is the podcast for middle managers who want to develop themselves, develop their teams, and improve their results. I've always wondered how, when someone buys a franchise, how they actually get trained. I know that the internal company probably also trains them, but boy, oh boy, I was so glad to be able to talk to this gentleman who really gets his hands dirty and gets in and really trains folks to own franchises. And it has a lot to do with leadership. So I got to talk to the CEO and founder of Franchise Maven, Greg Mohr. Greg is also a best-selling author, and we got into a conversation about his background and how he's gotten to do what he's doing right now. From the time he was a teenager, really the hard work that he's put in. But why is leadership so important for franchisees? How do they strike that work-life balance? What are some mistakes to avoid? We got into that and a whole lot more. You don't want to miss a second. Let's get at it.
This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. How do funded startup founders attract prospects and talent? Podcast interviews. How do entrepreneurs with exits find new deals? Podcast interviews. How do C-suite execs differentiate in crowded markets? Podcast interviews. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. Click the link in the show notes for a special offer. Celebrate good conversation.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. I have got a tremendous leader today that is going to talk about stuff, I promise you, that's going to be for middle managers right in their wheelhouse. And wait till you hear the advice that this gentleman is going to have for you today by sharing his amazing story and giving you all of his experience and advice about it and how you can go forward in the future. So I want to introduce Franchise Maven, CEO and founder and best-selling author Greg Mohr has joined me today. Greg, it is so great to have you on. How you doing, sir?
Excellent, Kenny. It's an honor to be on your show today. Thank you for that, sir.
Oh, it is my pleasure. My pleasure to have you on. Now, I got to say, I want to start here. When I was a teenager, man, I was playing basketball. I was playing baseball. I was hanging out with my friends. You were making moves as a teenager. So I really want you to talk about your backstory because I found it just fascinating and how you got to this place of not just, being a franchisee, but now teaching others on how to do it right with a lot of leadership, work-life balance, all those things. But what's led you to that? And then we'll get into some leadership stuff.
I appreciate that, Kenny. Well, actually, like you, we just talked a few minutes ago. You got your start working at McDonald's back when you were younger. A lot of us did that, especially back in the late 70s when I was in high school. We went to fast food places, and that's where we worked and got jobs. Good place to start. I started mine at Taco Bell, and I started moving up at Taco Bell after a while when I was working there. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was actually working for a master franchisor, and she owned about 50 Taco Bells throughout the Sacramento, California area. So I moved up, became a manager in there, and I helped her build up her restaurants throughout the Sacramento, California area. And that was my first foray into the franchising world itself. I went on to manage other restaurants, a 24-hour restaurant. It was a Lions restaurant, similar to a Denny's type restaurant there. Did the restaurant thing for about 15 years, managing that. Then went on to become a microelectronic circuit engineer, got a degree in electrical engineering and physics, then got a degree in business, read Robert Kiyosaki's books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That about ruined my corporate career for me. I realized that there's actually got to be something better out there. At the time, an engineering friend of mine and myself, while we were working, we owned dry cleaners. We owned, which had several drop-off locations at storage units, and owned some rental properties and all that. So we did the, working and then having a side gig as well, having another job or on that or another business to run on that. So we did that for a while, and then we both left. And then when I left and he left, I sold off my portion to him on that. So he took over the dry cleaners himself. I got to tell you, owning a privately owned dry cleaning when you don't know anything about dry cleaning or anything out the business, boy, that was a real challenge out there, learning how to do that. So I decided after I left so I went to work for Motorola Semiconductor as the engineer, and then I left there and I said, I got to do something myself. Owning that dry cleaner is privately owned one, that was a real challenge. I didn't know anything about that. And I don't have the latest, greatest idea. So I really like that franchising thing that I did back there when I was in high school. So I said, I've got to get back into franchising. So that's what I did. I went out there and I looked for different franchises, finally found a franchise consultant to help me out, which was a great benefit. That really helped things out a lot, and got my own franchise, ran that for a while, and then decided I like doing what those franchise consultants are doing. So I went back to them and said, teach me what you do. I want to do that. That sounds like fun. And that was about 10 years ago, and I've been doing it ever since.
Wow. What a what a story. I love every second of that. Go back to when you were like 17 and you were called on to run not just one, but a few restaurants. What was that experience like for you at such a young age?
Boy, that was really exciting. I was really excited and thrilled by that, mostly because one of the managers, so I was working in Woodland, and we'd fill in Woodland, California, and there was a manager in Davis who wanted to take a vacation. So they told me that, you're doing a good job, manager's going on vacation. How would you like to fill in for him? So the first thing that was so exciting to me about it was that, well, I'm going to skip a week of school so I can manage a restaurant. Being at 17, that's the greatest thrill there was. But just that responsibility then of, running that and knowing that you're the one that's in charge, that you're the one that everybody looks to guide people, and to lead people throughout the day. That was a very humbling experience on that. Not only exciting to, skip school for a week, but it was really humbling and I was very thrilled that they allowed me to do that, and they felt that I was doing well enough as a kind of like a lead or a shift manager or a shift leader type person, that they actually let me have the whole restaurant to myself for a week. It was very exciting.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, like I said, man, I was playing basketball and baseball back then. That's amazing. Eh, who inspired you? There had to be some inspirational folks along the way for you. And then I want to ask you what a franchise actually is. I think it'll be important to define that today because I think it's changed a little bit over the years. But what was some of the leaders that inspired you over the years, and what did they do?
Well, the first ones that inspired me were Larry and Mary, who ran the Taco Bell that I first started working at. They were just a bundle of energy and a bundle of joy. Always a good, positive attitude. Always looking out for us employees along the way. So they really showed me how you treat people really is a reflection on the whole entire business on that one. So we had an exceptional a restaurant there with Larry and Mary to help us become, as at 16, when you first started getting a job of going into it. They really showed me how you treat people and how you work with others to get them to do what you want them to do, but in a way that they want to do it on that. So they were great. And then Kathy, who was the area manager for the Taco Bells, once I started getting into the management there, she was my person, and she was the same way. I went on to help her, and she was the one that owned all the restaurants, actually. So I went on to help her manage those restaurants. And she was a great leader who, well, again, showed me that, working with others and treating people the way you like to be treated, really, really set the stage for the customer service and for the growth of the restaurant itself. Because people, when they come in, they could see that your clients, your customers, they could see the positiveness, the outgoing attitude of the employees on that, once you treated them the way that you want to be treated and the way they should be, and recognizing them as people. So those were a couple of great people along the way that really helped me out, really helped my career out quite a bit.
Yeah, I love that, especially in that time, and I grew up in the same area that you did. In that time, the restaurant industry wasn't known for having a lot of managers that were people persons. That it was just, hey, give me a sweep and mop, and that was it. And so I love that, because I could tell after doing research for you, you're absolutely a people person. You love being with people and showing people how they can succeed and get better. So I knew there had to be somebody that influenced you there early on. Greg, tell us what exactly, how would you define a franchise these days?
Franchise is what you you're getting from a franchise business model. You're getting a proven business model. So that's what a franchise is basically, is that you are investing in that business model. And that business model is one where somebody has set up something ahead of time, where they started their own business. At one time it was a privately owned business because it was theirs, and they turned it into a franchise, but they've got that business model all set up for you. So it's a playbook. You step right into it. You follow what they've done. They've done it before. They've proven it. Most of the time, they've proven it quite a few times. Depends on if you get into an emerging franchise or one that's been around for a longer amount of time. But they've got a proven business model that they've duplicated several times. You step in, it's a playbook for this is what you do this, this, and this. We've shown you here how many times we've done it in the past. So you just repeat that. Your chances of success are pretty darn good.
Okay. Great explanation and definition on that. So in your experience now, especially with people that you've been involved with, let's go down this road first. What are a couple of really successful things that you've seen franchisees do to become successful? What's one or two things in that playbook that you've seen them really take and take the ball and run with it?
When you're investigating a franchise, Kenny, to begin with, one of the things that you're going to do is you're going to have that franchisor tell you all about the business, how it works, how it runs, and you're going to get with them, and they're going to have a mentor, and they're going to just show you how to do it. You follow that playbook, you get a pretty good chance. You get a really good chance of taking off and be successful. What else you're going to do, the ones that have been really successful, is that you're going to talk to as many franchisees as it takes for you to get a good feel for that business.
Mm.
So that's going to do a couple of different things. One, that's going to validate everything that the franchisor told you, which is kind of important. But to your point, Kenny, what made them take off and what made them go well is that those people that you talk to, you are making friends with them. So now you've got the franchisor that's done this, has got their playbook, and you're buying that playbook from them, basically, is what you're doing on that, and they're going to help you grow. But now you've got all those other people, 10, 15, 20 people that you talked to and you made friends with. Now you've got another team of people. You got a whole tribe of people. And the people that I've seen take off made friends along the way, made good friends along the way when they're talking to those franchisees, when they're deciding before they got into a franchise. Now, once they got into it, if they need anything at all, they got the franchisor. But now you've got, 5, 10, 20 different people also just saying, this is what I tried, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, don't do this. So you're not guessing at all. You just bam, 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 you're off and running. Those are the people that have really took off, ones that made friends with other franchisees and have them help you grow.
Gotcha. What have been some mistakes that you've seen, franchisees make, especially early on?
Well, a lot of these people that get into franchising, Kenny, are just great people. They've been around the block a few times, so to speak, on that one. So I had one that was a vice president in the hotel gaming industry over in Las Vegas on that, and she took over, invested in a tutoring franchise over in the Las Vegas Valley on that. She took over the whole Las Vegas Valley for that one. And she noticed that the franchisor was not targeting any of the hotels. And she thought, boy, that's an area that you all are missing. How about if I go do that? Can I go do that? And franchisors are mostly pretty good about the fact that you can be a bit creative on that. They say, this is what we've done. This is what proven, what's worked. Follow this, you're good to go. She wanted to do something different. They said, we've never done that before. If you feel that that's something that's great, then by all means, go for it. She did. She tried it. Did not work on that. So she went back to what they said to do, and it took off.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest thing is, before you start going and being creative, going outside the box, you really get to know that franchise first, run it the way that they've done it, and then after that, become creative. Don't try and be creative, just stepping right into it.
That is awesome advice. I really think. And so there is room for innovation, but, make sure you're getting as much, as possible. I'm going to throw this at you. One of the best movies about franchising that I saw, I'm sure you probably saw it, is called The Founder, with McDonald's Ray Kroc, and Ray Kroc wasn't a very nice guy, but I I really thought that I used that movie as lessons in leadership, and I want to go down that road with you now because um, I thought that he wasn't really a great leader. He was a milkshake salesman, and but I think he developed some leadership skills along the way. Whereas at the two franchise owners, the McDonald's brothers, um, I didn't think they had great leadership skills either. They were, great at working, and one was good at bringing customers in and bringing processes and stuff like that. What are some the most successful franchise owners that you've worked with? Tell us about some of the great leadership traits that they have and how they use that to be successful.
They have got experience usually already with working with people and with developing people. So being able to develop a team is one of the best things to have when you go into a franchise, depending on the franchise system. Every franchise is different, so I don't want to scare any of your listeners away and think that you have to be, this awesome, great leader to do it. A lot of times they're going to train you, they're going to do it. But it depends on which franchise you get into. So if you step into a role of managing McDonald's, like we were talking about, Kenny, before, then you've got a huge team of people that you've got to motivate, that you've got to move. So the people that are real successful at that have really got an outgoing and very empathetic viewpoints, not too strong or to the point where they let their people walk over them or anything like that, but to the point where they really care about their people. And what they're looking to do is, in each individual person that they hire, they bring on, they're looking for their next manager on that, looking for their next potential area manager or something like that. And they really try and look at them from that point and develop them from that point, giving them the tools needed to get to that point where if they decide they want to move up in that organization and become a manager, become an area manager, if they decide to own more than one territory for whatever franchise they do, those are the people that really succeed as managers.
Yeah, I love that. And being able to build a team and then also looking towards the future, right? I might hire this 18-year-old kid and we're not talking about restaurants anymore, just restaurants, right? It's franchises on a lot of industries now. Back when I was younger, the only, you thought of McDonald's or Taco Bell as franchises, so many now in different across a lot of spectrums. But I may hire that young kid that I'm looking, 3-4 years from now, this can be my new area manager. So I'm going to make sure I develop them and build a team also around them. Conversely, Greg, what have been some skills lacking, some leadership skills that are lacking in some franchise owners that you've seen that going forward in 2024, you want to work real hard on what specific skills?
Team building, as we talked about, is the biggest thing when you get into a franchise. I really look for that. And when we talk about franchise, and there's, like you say, Kenny, there's many different franchises in many different industries, from the service industry to brick and mortar. Everybody sees brick and mortar, but there's also the service industry. But team building is real good, and being able to work with different types of people, depending on the type of franchise you get into. Because we've been talking about mostly unskilled labor with the restaurants that you and I worked at when we were younger and we were unskilled. But there's many franchises where you get into skilled labor. So really getting to know how to develop people, not only the unskilled labor force, but the skilled labor force, depending on what you want to get into there, and really how to work with them, and knowing that depending on the type of business that you get into, you are going to have a different type of person. Well, you're going to have lots of different types of people on there, but on that, and you got to work with many different types. But you may have a skilled workforce that you need to look at, and you need to develop that sense of, well, this one's going to be a little bit different to develop and to build up and to build a team with. So you've got to have a sense of how to work with those folks on that. But I really look at people's backgrounds to see, what have they done in the past and where they fit into the franchising world on that. And I make recommendations based on that. But developing a good feel for people when you get into a business, and being able to adapt yourself to work with, skilled labor force, unskilled labor force is an essential tool that you'll need in pretty much any business if you decide to go the entrepreneur route.
Wow. That's great advice. Greg, how do you advise, or what do you do to encourage um, leaders to stay close to the front lines? I can remember a big franchisee I worked at, um, when he would come and visit stores, the owner, he had no clue what we actually did, day in and day out. And I don't know that they need to be an expert in, the nuts and bolts of the business, but I think have a good idea. So how do you keep them engaged and close to the business? What are some things you advise them to do?
I tell my people to go out there before they even get into a franchise system itself, is to go out there and work with that franchise, work within one of those franchisees for a day. Go out there and spend a day with them and find out exactly what they do on a regular basis, and really get involved and see what their workers do on a regular basis. And obviously, if you're going into a skilled trade, you're probably not going to be out there, doing the plumbing work or the actual electrical work on that.
Right.
Uh, but go and find out, and go with that franchisee for a day, find out what they do. Go out with their employees whenever you can and find out what they're doing on a regular basis. And when you get into a franchise business, or any business for that matter, really go out and spend some time with your employees every once in a while and find out what they're doing on a regular daily basis. On that, I think putting yourself in their shoes and going out with them, it does a lot for you getting to know the business itself, what they have to go through on a daily basis, and they get a really good feeling that you actually care about what they're actually doing on a daily basis, and it really makes them feel good. Employees feel good about you, and your customers too, because then they're going to see you a little bit more often if you're out there, on occasion, not all the time, but on occasion, going out there and working with your employees and see what they're doing. Assuming you're going out to a job site, or if you're, in a place where it's a retail type establishment, then going behind the counter every once in a while. I did that as a restaurant manager myself. I'd go out there and I'd, clean tables occasionally. I'd do that.
Yes.
I'd be out there with the host or hostess, seating people on that. I'd be serving food to people. They generally preferred I did not go behind the line and do any cooking.
Yeah.
Most of my clients said, we love your cooks. We've never seen you cook. So don't do that. The rest of it's good.
Yes, I remember those days very well. Getting thrown out of the kitchen, absolutely. I love that was priceless advice that you just gave. The television show Undercover Boss is coming to mind for me as I asked that question. It seems like every episode, the CEO or whoever they sent said, "Man, I got so far away from the business, I had no idea this was happening, or I had no idea this was happening." Um, and so I love the plan and how you're proactive with that with the people that you're working with. Um, how about work-life balance? Again, I remember the restaurant days very well. There wasn't much work-life balance then. It was all work. But you've come to a place where you talk about that a lot, and so talk about it now. What's your advice when it comes to work-life balance and putting in time into these franchises, because it's got to be time consuming, especially at the beginning. But what's your advice to franchisees, and how do you have a work-life balance in your life?
Great question, Kenny. The first thing I do is find out what people are looking to be doing over the next 5 to 10 years. Where do you see yourself on that one? So when I start getting into talking with my clients, there's one thing that we talk about is, what's the end game? What are you going to do at the end? Are you going to turn this over to somebody else, or are you going to sell it? What are you going to do with it? Whatever you do with it, that business cannot revolve around you at all. You've got to be separate. It's got to be able to run without you. Okay. If it's not running without you, it's just a job. Some people are okay with that. If you're fine with that, I can find you a franchise. It's just like that. Most people are not. So that's what we talk about, is that business has got to run without you. So if it's going to do that, then we need to look at businesses, and we need to position yourself to where you've got a manager running it most of the time on a regular basis, where you're working on the business, you're not working in the business itself. So that'll do two things. That's going to free up your time. Most of my people are looking for that. They're looking for not only more money, but they're also looking for more time to do the things that they want to do. Yeah. So that's what we do, is we position you to where you're getting into a franchise business where the franchise does not require you to be there full time. Some of those places do. Chick-fil-A, it's one that comes to mind. It requires you to do it full time. Great job, great people, great money. but you got to be there full time. So if you do not want to do that and you want more time to yourself, then that's what I talk about with my clients is what I get them into franchises and put franchises in front of them where you can run that business on a semi-absentee basis, because that's really where we want you to be. So you have the time. I do the same thing with mine. When I first started, now, when you first start out, you're pretty gung-ho about it. You really want that business to go. So yeah, Kenny, so we're going to be building that business up. So you might be spending a little bit more time on it, but the end goal, it's always the end goal where you want to be is, how do I get to the point where that business does not revolve around me so much? And that's what I did too. I started off doing this business, doing everything myself, but then there's some things that I realized that I like to do, which is talking with people, like talking with you, Kenny, on a regular basis. I like talking with people. There's some things I don't like to do, and that's necessarily going out and doing the stuff on the website. I'm not a website person. So what we look at, and what I tell people to look at, and what I looked at was, what are the aspect of my business that is very time consuming, I don't really enjoy. You will always find somebody out there who will do that, who enjoys doing that, those things that you don't enjoy doing. There's just, getting people to do marketing for you, getting people to do advertising for you, getting people to set up appointments for you, all sorts of people out there that enjoy doing that sort of thing. Well, so turn that part over to them, so you're doing as little as possible, kind of behind the scenes, and you're just right there, and as semi-absentee as possible.
Wow. Greg, I have to tell you, what you've talked about for this 24, 25 minutes or so has been just great advice for every leader at every level. I think in what you just said with the work-life balance, it's making a decision, right? And you're setting those expectations up front. Well, what do you want? We can get you into something that, you're not going to be required to be there all the time. But not Chick-fil-A, and I'm sure there's others, but so that is awesome. And I think leaders need to know that, up front, so that they aren't burnt out and they have what they want in terms of work-life balance. So just amazing advice. And so I've got the last two questions for you, sir. Tell us about your book and how people can get it.
I appreciate that, Kenny. Yeah, I wrote that year and a half, 2 years almost ago. Real Freedom: Why Franchises Are Worth Considering and How They Can Be Used for Building Wealth. I wrote that because people had all these questions about franchising on a regular basis. So everything is in there, how I'm going to walk you through it, and exactly what you need to look for when you're looking at a franchise. You can get that book on Amazon if you want to, or go to my website, Franchise Maven. That's franchise MAVEN.com. And there's a link in there to, if you just send me your information, I'll send you over a copy of the book as well.
Yeah. And your website is really laid out nicely. I know you said you don't like to do it, but it's really laid out nicely.
What you get a team for.
Yeah, it is really laid out nicely, and it gives some real good specifics on what folks should be doing and how to connect and contact you. You're being modest about your book, by the way. It's also a Wall Street Journal bestseller.
I was surprised. Yeah, that was amazing. It just took off, and all of a sudden, all these people went. I'm like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is all. Well, congratulations on that. And first of all, thank you so much for being so generous with your time today and for giving us so much and so much inspiration and so much information as well, and tips that we can use. So thank you for that, and much continued success. Hopefully people after they listen will go out and get your book and make a decision to at least kick the tires with you and have a conversation about being a franchise owner. It's all about leadership. So, so thank you again so much, Greg.
Kenny, it was an honor being on the show today. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. So let's leave it there, folks. This has been Kenny and Greg. This has been the Leading from the Middle podcast. We'll talk to you real soon.